Night from me. I'm Smriti Vidyarthi. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Smriti Vidyarthi, for that. And yes, let's now get to the events of the day and events that we're expecting in the days to come. This is going to be a week of a lot of political, or actually legal jargon for the political scene to decide who indeed is the president, the next president of Kenya. On the 5th, we will know who is the 5th. Some say we probably already know, some say we do not know for sure. But first things first, let's start with the voting that happened today. The 8 areas or the 8 positions that had the exercise postponed to today. It has happened, and Joe Halende, a political strategist, and I don't want to call him a loser in the just concluded elections, but a contender. Let's say a contender. You ran for office, you didn't win, but you accepted, you conceded, and you've moved on very fast. Back to your position as a political strategist. Yes. Thank you for joining us. And Ruth Ambogo, a political strategist as well, governance expert. Thank you for joining me this evening and hanging in there as we had the developments of the day. But you heard it, you've seen it, and it's been even reported by the election observer groups. ELOG, nonetheless, saying as at 3 p.m., looking at their numbers in terms of the turnout, in Kakamega it was 17%. This was at 3 p.m. And in Mombasa it was 20 to 30%. Again, I'll put it to you, any surprises here, or is this a resounding word from the electorate that they are fed up?
You know, at the point at which IBC was conducting voter registration last year, we should have seen the signs of the times. That at that time, IBC had projected to have 6 million new registered voters, but they only managed to get about 2.5 million registered voters. And of the registered voters, the youth who registered to vote in this new batch of registered voters were, the number reduced by like about 5.25%, meaning that at that particular point, it was evident that people were not interested in this process at all. And I would want to blame that on a lot of factors. First and foremost, there was a general lack of voter education. I remember attending an interview here at NTV a few days to the elections, and I was asking myself, it's literally, I think it was like 10 days to the elections, and IBC had not even started doing voter education. And you know, these are some of the questions that lead to one asking themselves that, you know, how effective are our electoral management systems? We cannot just assume that people know why they should vote, you know. We cannot just assume, especially the new voting population, we can't just assume that, you know, they will wake up and just go and vote. Why? Some of them are very new to these procedures. An 18-year-old, a 19-year-old voter is someone who is fresh from high school, has got no idea of how government works, has got no idea of how, they might know how government works from theory, but they've not had a practical experience of government processes and how they affect them personally. You know, I must also admit that personally, at my age and with the experience that I have, I only came to understand the effects of the workings of government and our leaders just very recently. It is COVID that made me realize that the government operations can have a direct, you know, impact on my life. But generally, without COVID, I think most of us were just surviving, saying, you know, for as long as I wake up and I get my day-to-day living, I'm good to go. You know, I don't care about anything else that is happening around. So I think the voters have not been educated, or I mean, there has never been proper voter education to inform Kenyans, and not just the young people, I mean, not just the young people, but Kenyans in general, as to the impact of their vote. For instance, now, I worry for the young people, for the youth population. Why I worry for them is that, you know, once the leaders have tabulated their votes and they have come to an understanding that this is how people voted for me, they will begin to act and even legislate
to punish them?
Not necessarily punish, but they will align their interests based on who voted for them. I can assure you and guarantee you that a lot of legislation that will take place in Parliament will tend to align, or rather will tend to put aside the interests of those who did not necessarily take an interest in this process.
Not really take the interests of who's making the call from up there in terms of the political alignments?
You know, I mean, that also counts, but the truth of the matter is that as a legislator, when you're going to Parliament, now you'd be thinking, for instance, now I'd tell you, like in Vihiga County, where I voted and where I participated in the ODM campaigns and the management of the elections.
Yeah.
The young people voted, the youth vote was very minimal. So I'm imagining that as a legislator going to parliament, you'd begin to think of 2027. And now you're saying, since it is the women, the elderly who voted for me, let me start coming up with policies and programs to satisfy their interests so that in the coming elections, they vote for me in even larger numbers, you know?
Well,
so the reality of the matter is that when you fail to participate in an electoral process, I always tell the young people that the moment you fail to participate in an electoral process, you are basically subjecting yourself to a position where you have no right to complain about anything that happens in this country for the next 5 years. You have no right to talk because you had a right to express yourself at the ballot, you know. And then also, over and above lack of voter education, we must appreciate the role that the tough economic times have played in people deciding whether or not to participate in the elections, the role that poverty and unemployment has played. Because I'll give you an example, as I had said earlier, that at Vihiga, something interesting would happen at some of the polling stations that I visited as a manager of the elections on behalf of ODM and Azimio candidates in Vihiga. You'd walk to a polling station and find a group of women sitting down, women and men and youth, just outside the polling station. So you ask them, have you guys voted? And they're like, you know, we are waiting for so you to partake a lunch so that you can vote, you know. So you ask yourself, voters, have we gotten to a point where voters are also now selling their votes, you know, where if they are not paid to vote, then they would not vote, you know.
But then the other question there, as your own observer then, is did voter bribery then happen if indeed walipewa kalanzi?
We cannot dispute the fact that voter bribery took place.
Okay.
And I will say this, that for me, when it comes to the bigger question of the ultimate results of the presidential election, I will tell you for sure, voter bribery played a key role in the final results that William Ruto got that got him to be president-elect. I saw that happening.
Argument, it was just for one side,
I saw that happening. For me, from where I stand and where I was and what I witnessed, it seemed to come from one particular side.
And you could translate that lunch that was given went all the way to vote for one person. Anyway, Joe Halende, I don't think you asked for any goodies back from the people you were campaigning or pitching for. We've heard people say, nirudisheni tangizangu or whatever, because they didn't vote for them because they were hoping they'd get votes. But nonetheless, you've said earlier, by-elections are characteristically defined by low voter turnout. But we find ourselves in a special place or a special transition period. It's a bit of a limbo because the presidential position hasn't definitively been done or dealt with. We are waiting the Supreme Court judgment, which is in a week's time. So what do you think that has contributed to even now the response to another set of elections in the postponed areas?
Politicians will want it to work it that way. But the general way, the way our voters operate, historically, and if you look at our past records, you'll see that by-elections and mini polls tend to have low voter turnout. A good example is before this election of 2022, that was in 2020 and 2021, when we had the by-election in Msambweni, we had the by-election in Matungu, Kiamba, and Juja. They were characterized by low voter turnout. So this was expected, and I think the major players or the key actors in those specific areas ought to have been prepared to look at the logistical way of how to get people out to come and vote for their specific. But generally, there's a way Kenyans operate. And the real reason why people come in large number to vote is the way historically we have been made to believe the real thing or the high value or the high stakes are with the presidential vote.
Right.
So the voters or our common voter go out to vote because of the presidential vote. But as my good sister said about when she was visiting the polling station during the 9th August, I can tell you I was a candidate in this election. For specifically seats for MCA and MP, there was massive voter bribery. Because these people, they only come here, they only go to those polling stations to vote for specific presidential candidate. So they will tend to hang around the polling station to wait for MCA and MP to show up so that he can bribe them or can buy them lunch so that they can finally vote. But clearly, what transpired in specifically the Western region, which is strongly ODM zone, there was massive voter bribery. Even today in the morning, you saw from the people in Mombasa and the reports from Kakamega, there was massive voter bribery for people to go
and with those allegations, again, I'll put the same question that I put to Ruth. You can convert that bribe that went from one side, that went from one particular person, and it was converted to one candidate. You can convert that. For you to claim that voter bribery happened in favor of one side or the other.
Not voter bribery was
can we at least agree, because you represent both of the, the leading sides, that if indeed it happened across the board.
Specifically for my case, I'm a young man. I didn't have the chance to buy the voter. So there's no way I could have participated in it. But generally, the way our politics is operated, and it's not something that we should encourage, but we need to have massive voter education and educate our voters that the MCA that you are selecting today, the MP that you're selecting today, and the governor that you're selecting today is the person who is going to be in charge of the issues and the services that you need at your doorstep. And one professor, Yuval Noah, said that if the future of humanity will be decided in your absence because you are busy feeding and clothing your children, you and they will pay the consequences. So the people who have let us down in today's main poll are those people who remain at their home or that they were busy at work so that they could not go and vote. Those are the people who have let us down.
Yeah.
But will you deny the general feeling of what's the use? Even going into the polls of August 9th. I mean, I voted, but I know a number of people who didn't. Because they ask, what's the use? What change will it really bring? Yes, there's a presidential aspect. That's mostly where the focus is. But you bring up something important. The MCA back at home, he's the one who actually would convert if they do work. Will convert and make sure that there's a road that passes here. Not really the presidential candidate who comes to promise tutawekea barabara hapa na pale. It's an MP, it's an MCA. So there is that overwhelming feel of what's the use? Why go to the polls? You can't deny that.
No, we can't. I mean, we can't deny the fact that people ask themselves what's the use, and unfortunately, the question that they ask and the answers that they give are totally misguided. The problem with Kenyans and most of us is that when we are not in a campaign season, when we are not campaigning, when people are not putting themselves up for elections, we pretty much don't care what is happening in the country, and we consume a lot of propaganda. It is only during election period of time that fact checkers come up, real quick. They come up and, clarify that, oh, this is propaganda. During campaigns, that is when you hear fact checkers coming and saying, this is not true, this is true. But between after the elections and the next elections, do we care to ask ourselves, for instance, that yes, there was a serious economic crisis in this country just after COVID, during COVID and after COVID, and the effects are still being felt to date? Then you ask yourself as a Kenyan that who participated in bringing us to that particular point? You hear Kenyans who will consume the propaganda that, two people shaking hands is the reason why the economy has collapsed, when in reality, there are a lot of external factors that have led us to this situation. And what a true Kenyan should be doing is asking themselves, what are these external factors? And when I look at the candidates that are presenting themselves for elections, instead of saying that, look, these people are the ones who've led us to this economic status, I should ask myself, how did you get ourselves here? If there are external factors that contributed to us having the economic situation that we are at, my question as a Kenyan should be, or my motivation to vote should be, who amongst the 2, 3, 4 candidates on the ballot will be best placed to resolve that question, as opposed to saying, they're the ones who've led us here, so what's the point of voting for them? And
let's be honest for a bit, because you're both political strategists. For Azimio, for Kenya Kwanza, that propaganda you say Kenyans, consume, you're the ones producing it.
Oh no, let me tell you, Mark, maybe when I'm on air, I say it as it is. When
I'm on air, as a political strategist.
When I'm on air, I say it as it is. And unfortunately, today I'll just be honest. It's elections have come, have gone. We have to be honest. When you come and audit how some of the analysis that we would do, the analysis and messaging that we would do from both camps, you'd notice that there was, to be honest, so much propaganda from the end of these other guys, the Kenya
None
Kwanza
from-
guys.
none from
Remember,
Azimio.
I'll give you good examples. Just remember that just a few days before the elections, these people claimed that, oh, you know, somebody wants to kill someone's son. You know, they pushed the narrative that Uhuru Kenyatta wants to stay in power for the next 5 years, when we all know that, you know, once your term ends, your term has ended. You know, there was so much they kept saying that, you know, fuel prices have risen because of the handshake. And then when William Ruto went to the presidential debate, he actually admitted the role that he played way back to the rising of the fuel prices. So, you know, I wish we could be objective as Kenyans.
You're saying Ruto admitted that he was
yes,
part
he
of,
did. He admitted during the presidential debate, he was questioned about the rise in the fuel prices, and he admitted the role that
Ruto,
yes, he did.
I'm the man to blame.
No, he did not say that he's the man to blame, but he admitted to the part that he played.
You're spinning something here.
I'm not spinning. I'm not
so
spinning.
basically, are you telling me, Ruth Ambogo,
yes,
that the Azimio side and the political strategists that you're part of did not in any way
no, we did. I mean, there was
propaganda?
there can never be politics without propaganda.
All right,
but
let him respond now.
From where I see it, Kenyans I need to salute Kenyans, because this time round, this 2022 election was about economy, was about the cost of living, was about youth unemployment. If you go back and look at all the rallies, both from Azimio and both from Kenya Kwanza, and I speak for Kenya Kwanza because that's where I belong, and I can tell you, our presidential candidate, our principal within Kenya Kwanza, tried to execute and to sell the manifesto and the agenda and the plan. And it was about the economy, reviving the economy. It was about the cost of living. It was about youth unemployment. Unlike the previous election, where our campaign were always on tribal arithmetic. This region versus this region, this tribe versus this tribe. This time round, we tried. But
well, the tribal arithmetic was played with the choice of the running mate. Let's be honest on both ends. Let's be honest.
But the focus of the election.
But the focus of the election, right, the campaign, was it was issue-based. And that's one thing that we need to salute
My
Kenyans
goodness, so
and
you
salute
agree?
politicians.
No, I do agree because
they both agree.
I agree because
okay.
You know why I agree? So I agree
actually,
because
I can tell you, Mark, if you look at the voter turnout, the general election, even the voter turnout was low.
Yes.
Specifically, Kenyans were used to the tribal arithmetic. It was this tribe versus this tribe. It was more of a fight.
All
but
right.
this time around, it was more of issues
Who
and those who were interested
and
who had the better idea. And I want to salute Kenyans that they made their decision on 9th of August.
Okay.
And Chebukati pronounced the decision.
Oh, let's see where you're going. Let's take a break at the point that you agree that, you know, it was issue-based this time, largely beyond the tribal lines that have been drawn historically in elections. We're taking a break at this point. We'll be back with more, including expectations of the Supreme Court, how it will play out legally, because Khalende is also from the legal side of things, as well as what to expect and how it will play out for both sides, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza.
Mivida Garden City, a residential development within Garden City offering stunning 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, unique amenities and an urban green convenient living. Call us today on 0722 123 000. Mivida, my home, my life.
Chachimbitisha, uondoke Mitsubishi. Hit the highest odds daily. Ushinde Mitsubishi Expander. Pokea 50k daily. Na ukishindwa kwa mechi moja, pokea 25k cashback. Mozartbet.
Who is that, Mother?
Oh, it's Dr. Sarmiento, dear.
What did he say?
He's insisting that he doesn't believe that I have a gambling addiction. And he said that we should cancel the appointments we made.
That's what he told you?
Yes. I told him that I won't. Because I'm going to do this for my family.
Okay, what are those?
Don't you see the rings?
I see that, but...
Look. Both our names are engraved on them, you see?
Yeah, I see it, but aren't we a little too old now to be doing these things?
It had to be you.
Get peace of mind and protect the ones you love with the power of Dettol bar soap. It cleans and protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So no matter what type of mum you are, trust Dettol.
Sasa mama, either utatulia unisikize ama basi unimalize. Juni hiyo ndo unataka kufanya.
Nakusikiza. Ongea, shinda hapo unapoteza wakati.
Kuzo mwambie. Kenye li happen ni...
Is it true? Did you find her? You found her? Where is she? Upstairs?
Sir, it's not good.
Safaricom Foundation is uplifting communities by bringing their dreams to reality through Ndoto Zetu. Apply online or visit any Safaricom shop near you. Application deadline is 15th September 2022.
Labor markets, economies, enterprises, supply chains, governments, workers, employers. We go deeper and beyond. Business Daily. Available off and online.
The Nairobi Hospital Accident and Emergency Center is manned by well-trained doctors and emergency nurses who are focused at saving lives. With a network of labs, you're guaranteed of accurate medical test results. The Nairobi Hospital is a center of renal excellence, providing cutting-edge technology with over 10 dialysis machines.
Welcome back in studio. We still have Joe Halende, a political strategist, and he has been working as such for the Kenya Kwanza side. He was running for office. He didn't win, but he went back to his position, and he is holding fort for Kenya Kwanza in this discussion. And Ruth Ambogo is also a political strategist, governance analyst, and expert, and holding fort for the Azimio
and
side.
I was also an aspirant at some point.
Yes, was. That's in the past.
You were never
Sasa, there is the argument, or at least the complaint that was put forward, especially by the Azimio side, that IEBC's action of postponing the elections, especially the governor position in Kakamega and Mombasa, was a ploy to at least defeat them politically and with the numbers. We've seen what's happened with the turnout and in terms of this postponed election and even previously for the general election. I'll start with you, Joe, because this is an argument put forward by them and she will defend it. Does it hold for you, this argument, that the postponement by IEBC of the Kakamega governor and Mombasa governor position in their stronghold was a plan to defeat them politically with the numbers?
Yeah, it doesn't hold. It doesn't hold with me because generally, if you look at those regions that Azimio is citing for not having the gubernatorial election played into their numbers for the presidential, because if you look at the coastal region, specifically the coastal region, you look at the numbers from Kilifi, you look at the numbers from Kwale, Lamu, and Mombasa. Generally, there was low turnout. Even if you try and go and compare with the 2017 turnout, you will realize that though generally the coastal region had low voter turnout from between 7% to 16%, and Kilifi was the highest with almost 16% if you compare the 2017 presidential election and you compare with the 2022 presidential election. Kilifi is the highest with 16%, followed by Mombasa with 15%, then Lamu was 7%. So generally, there was low turnout. Go to Kakamega region. Compare Kakamega with Vihiga and Busia. You'll realize that Vihiga also had low voter turnout at presidential, and Busia also had low voter turnout. So it doesn't hold, but one thing that you need to realize at the end of the day, those who turned out to vote, how did they vote? That's what matters.
Okay.
Yes.
But earlier you did say that in any case, Mombasa and Kakamega were for Azimio not to lose. It's not quite a question of winning, but that seems or sounds like a defeatist kind of statement.
Not a defeat kind of a statement. In terms of presidential vote, if you look at it in terms of presidential vote for Mombasa and Kakamega, and basically Western region and Mombasa, William Ruto has made inroad. If you compare the numbers that Uhuru Kenyatta got in 2017 and the numbers that Raila got in 2017, you compare it with the numbers that Raila have now and the numbers that Ruto had. Because if you look at specifically, let's go for Mombasa. On 9th, Raila had 161,000. William Ruto had 113,000. You go back to 2017, you'll realize Uhuru Kenyatta could hardly make it to 50,000. So William Ruto has managed to penetrate Raila Amolo Odinga's stronghold to the extent that even if at the end of the day, because in Mombasa it was 58% against 41%.
Yeah.
Clearly you can see it is a close contest.
Are you conceding to, as a Kenya Kwanza, as political strategist, to an Azimio political strategist?
I'm not conceding. What I'm trying to put across is that we have made inroads in their stronghold as compared to what they will have said it's their stronghold.
How does it sound to you, Ruth? And also speak to the bigger picture in terms of a win for the governor position in Mombasa and Kakamega and the other positions, if it has any other meaning, greater meaning in the bigger picture.
First of all, I'd like to respond to this change of narrative. You know, one thing that Kenya Kwanza is very good at is when things suit them, the narrative is good. When things don't suit them, the narrative has to change. In what sense? That had they won Mombasa and Kakamega, it would be a totally different story.
We can't quite speak.
Yes, we can't speak to it. But one thing I'll tell you for sure is that the moment William Ruto was declared president-elect, the narrative that our good friends came up with was that, you see, now that we are now president-elect, the voters in Mombasa and Kakamega would not want to be in the opposition. That's the narrative that they sold. And I'm not talking about propaganda, it's narratives, because remember, we are strategists. We are both strategists, so we can tell when a narrative is coming from this side. And it's the same narrative that they're currently pushing, that if we are to go to a rerun, in case Supreme Court nullifies this election, if we are to go to a rerun, that, you know, Kenyans will say, we already know who looked like they were winning the election, so we are going to vote for them. And I think the picture that we are seeing in Kakamega right now, at least we can, personally, I can speak for Kakamega, because looking at how the results are coming in, it appears as if we could project a win for ODM. And such a projection, or rather, if it turns out that Fernandez Baraza wins that election and it is a win for ODM, it nullifies the narrative that they are pushing, that even if we are to go to a runoff or a rerun, rather, if you were to go to a rerun, that, you know, it would be automatic who would be the winner. I think it is also, it paints the bigger picture that, you know, loyalty is just loyalty, you know. When people are loyal to you, they are loyal to you. That it doesn't matter whether, you know, at the top things look different. If a region is loyal to you, it is loyal to you. And Kakamega has proven their loyalty to Raila Odinga. And in fact,
would you concede that they've made inroads in those areas?
I mean, what do you mean by inroads when in a county where there are 12 constituencies, ODM gets 12? I mean, 10 out of the 12 seats. What inroads have been made there? You know,
the political candidate.
What inroads have been made there? I mean, when 10 out of 12 MPs are from ODM,
what about
when over 85% of the people vote for Raila Odinga, you know, I really don't count it as an inroad, especially given that the principals who come from that region had promised that they would give their leader 70% in Western Province, which means that we were expecting 70% in Vihiga, and look at what happened in Vihiga. Vihiga, where their principals comes from, we gave Baba 62.25%, you know. Okay. Look at Kakamega, where they ought to have given Baba 70%. Baba, I mean, their leader, William Ruto, 70%. Yes. Raila got 85%. So there is no, in Bungoma, we know how they vote. We did not expect anything from Bungoma. In fact, the last time I was here the last time I was here with James Smart, I told him that, look, for Western, forget about, Kenya Kwanza should forget about 70%. The only place they should have hope is Bungoma, because we know how Bungoma typically votes.
Yes.
Basically, Mark, the current governor who has served 2 terms from Kakamega is Oparanya. The outgoing governor for Mombasa is Ali Hassan Joho. Both of them, they hold the office of the deputy party leader in ODM. So generally, these 2 gubernatorial seats are for ODM to lose. But I'm happy as a Kenya Kwanza person seated here, because looking at the presidential vote on 9th of August, we made inroads, and by the fact that we have made these two mini election for gubernatorial position a contest, we have won. We have won. And you go back and look at the numbers for 2013, how Uhuru Ruto, the numbers that they were getting from Kakamega and Mombasa, you compare with the numbers that Ruto managed to get from Mombasa and Kakamega. As a Kenya Kwanza guy, you need to be happy, because we made inroads in real Raila stronghold area.
It looked like you're saying, as a Kenya Kwanza guy, I need to be happy. That was just his expression of the point, yeah. I need to be neutral here in this conversation. So let's move it along a bit now, because there are 8 people, or at least positions, being waited upon in terms of the results, and that's what we are talking about, among them Kakamega and Mombasa. But there's hundreds who are already assuming office. We're talking about governors and others who have already been taken through orientation for the National Assembly and other positions. And in your view as political strategists, will the party allegiances now hold? We've seen some people jumping ship soon after the presidential declaration, the presidential candidate declaration, the winner declared by IBC chair. Do you think the various sides, Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, will hold? We've seen even some from Nyanza who have jumped, you're calling them independent. Yes, they're jumping ship.
Yes.
Do you see it holding, the formations now?
One thing I will tell you, in the words of the late Otieno Kajwang, party is about loyalty and fidelity. And the thing about, I don't know about Kenya Kwanza, it's a fairly new coalition, or rather it's a fairly new union, because I don't think they're a coalition. One thing I know about ODM is that disloyalty is punished instantly and loyalty is rewarded in installments. So what I mean by that is that once the voters have voted for you on ODM, they don't expect anything from you other than loyalty to the party to the end.
Not service to what they expect you to.
Remember, at the end of the day, a political party is a vehicle that pushes a social agenda for the people.
And it almost seems like it's just for you to get into office. Then, hayo mengine watu wanasahau.
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know about the other parties, but what I have seen in ODM, having been a member for a long period of time, one would even if you're not a member of ODM, you'd see the kind of thought process and the kind of policies that they're trying to push. They've been consistent on issues. They've been consistent on the question of democracy. They've been consistent on the question of justice. They've been consistent on the question of the fight against corruption, which are issues that are aligned to what the people want. So in as much as one would want to say that, look, your loyalty is to the people first, but remember those people voted for you on that particular party. So for me, where the loyalty where I say loyalty should be set aside is when a political party, in the course of one being a member of parliament or one being an elected leader, deviates from a position that would be for the benefit and the good of the people of Kenya. And that is where I would want to salute certain leaders in the last camp who defied their political party leaders on very critical issues. Look at the likes of Sakaja, Malala, Mutula Kilonzo, the 3 who stood out very strongly during the revenue allocation debate, where their party leaders wanted them to take a particular position that was not necessarily favorable to their people in their own view, And they went their separate way. They fought for what they believed was right. And they got, I want to believe that at the end of the day, they actually won in terms of, because the vote actually ended up favoring them, because they were the deciding vote. That was one of those hotly contested issues in parliament. So for me, loyalty to the party is something that one needs to be honest, one needs to observe, and up until when the party ceases to pursue agenda agenda or positions that represent the Mwananchi's interest. If your party suddenly decides that, look, we are now going to push for a dictatorial government, then by all means, walk out, you know. But for as long as this is a party that, look, by the way, for most people, by the time you're getting elected by a party, and I want to talk about especially female leaders, by the time you are elected, no, by the time you are fronted by a political party, most people end up, in Kenya, most people win an election because they won a nomination in a party. That is the truth. Otherwise, if parties were not important, then we would have a majority of leaders being independent candidates. So we must appreciate the role and the value of a party. Now, why I would insist on loyalty to parties for as long as they push the agenda of the Mwananchi is that most of these leaders, and especially women leaders I've seen, for instance, they rise to where they are because the party has trained you, the party has nurtured you, the party has given you opportunities to grow, opportunities to, you know, grab microphones and speak before people. So for that reason, you all loyal to that party. Like, I am an example.
And it would stand the test of time if, for instance, this decision at the Supreme Court would go to the advantage of the other side. So, for instance, if it is loyalty to Azimio or ODM throughout, but even if the Supreme Court decides otherwise, you still feel the loyalty will stay.
Remember, in 2017, the Supreme Court decided otherwise against Raila Odinga. Did his MPs walk away? They all remained, you know. If anything, the party that won elections, Jubilee, we saw massive defections to UDA, you know, massive. There was very minimal movement from ODM to other parties. That's why I'm telling you, in ODM, loyalty is very, very critical. You become disloyal to the party, you're kicked out. But I would want to give an example, Mark, of myself.
Someone listening might ask, you'll speak highly, of course, of ODM because you're the political strategist. But someone watching this would say, to be honest, you know, not just in ODM, but politically speaking, politicians don't have permanent enemies or permanent friends.
No, but that is true.
What favors that?
That is true. Let me tell you, when I was vying for, I've been an ODM member since way back. Then when I decided to vie for Women Rep Vihiga County, the reality hit me that, look, this is Vihiga County. At that particular point, ANC was the party that you had to be in to win an election. I actually went to ANC, and I stayed there for some time until I realized that that is not a party. And I'm not speaking bad about the party, but my personal experiences within the party, you know, violence, a lot of just drama, harassment. He knows what happened to me. I had to go back to my original home, ODM, you know. So what I'm trying to put across is that leaders will be loyal to parties for as long as, personally as a leader, I would be loyal to a party for as long as the party serves the interest of the people that I represent. The moment the party stops serving the interest of the people that I represent, I would rather become an independent member of parliament than continue being a member of that party. For instance, an example of somebody who switched because the party no longer served the interests of the people that he represented was my Senator Osotsi. Osotsi looked at ANC and the kind of drama that he was facing there and the fact that, you know, there really did not seem to be any progressive agenda, and he moved to ODM. So, but if the party has been good to you, trained you, given you resources, is still pushing the agenda that you stand for and believe in,
Joe, what's in your view, and we're looking at you know, Supreme Court judgment in a week's time, how things might change in the formations?
Things
have already changed for some.
Things have already changed. Things will change. Politics is dynamic. Politics keeps on changing. People are gravitating around the president-elect William Ruto and in Kenya Kwanza. Out of 12 independent candidates, 10 have already committed to work with the Kenya Kwanza government. The party leader of MDG, who is the MP of Ugenya, has committed is going to work with the Kenya Kwanza. So I can clearly see a situation where everything is gravitating around William Ruto and everybody wants to work with the government of the day. Going back to 2018, after the election, after the swearing in of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, Kenyans were shocked in the morning at the steps of Harambee offices when one Raila Amolo Odinga appeared with Uhuru Kenyatta, going into a handshake, being in government through the handshake. So expect something, almost something similar like that to happen. But I'm happy that William Ruto made it categorical that he is ready to work with all political leaders in their respective position. If you are in opposition, you will remain in opposition. If you are part of Kenya Kwanza and in government, you will work from government. So we will not kill opposition in disguise that we are forming a government that is going to work for the people. Best governments work when the checks and balances are offered by the opposition. So it is how the decision, the Kenyans are already made their decision on 9th, which was pronounced. The Azimio people have an issue, but I'm happy. The issues that Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga said on Sunday is that he's ready to face the truth. And he's ready to realize to ask, as in he's ready for the answer. And the answer lies with Form 34As. It's not the Supreme Court. It is on Form 34As. So the real answers that Raila is looking for, they're in Form 34As, which the characters around Azimio have managed to micromanage and to try and fake things so that it look like there are no real answers in Form 34.
Those are the allegations you're making. But just to put it, and you have a legal background, so you understand the last word on this is from the Supreme Court judgment that will be delivered next week. So let's wait for that. But from a political standpoint, there is a lot to expect in terms of what reaction might be, whatever scenario might turn out. So looking at the scenarios, first of all, there are possible, there's a possibility of a retally, there's a possibility of a rerun, and it being nullified or being upheld. So politically speaking, from a political lens, how do you see those scenarios being reacted to politically? Because we have to wind up. We're not getting into the pros and cons of what has been presented because that's not our place right now, but politically speaking.
Well, politically speaking, what I see happening is I see if the Supreme Court is to rely on the precedents that had been set in the last election, then I see the election being nullified. And I see us going to a rerun or a fresh election. A rerun or a fresh election in what sense? A rerun would be called if we feel confident that we can still go into this election with the current IBC. But if it comes out of the Supreme Court that indeed the current IBC was compromised and was unable to run the elections in a free, fair manner, then we would go to a fresh election, which would mean that we would have to get a fresh IBC, and that would not be anytime soon. So I think we will go back to...
Would that give credence to the theory, or at least what some people have brought up, that indeed there is a plan to extend in one way or another Uhuru Kenyatta's term?
It is not a plan. It is not a plan. If it is a plan, then if it is a plan to extend Uhuru Kenyatta's term in office, then the person responsible would be Chebukati. Because at the end of the day, the person responsible for that would be nobody else but Chebukati. Because at the end of the day, what would make
But
Uhuru
Chebukati,
Kenyatta
in his defense, would say, I declared
what would make Uhuru Kenyatta
chair.
stay in power for that long, as we wait for a fresh election, would be if the Supreme Court, upon the basis of what has been tabled as evidence before the court, not necessarily looking at Uhuru Kenyatta and how long he needs to stay in power. No. What is before the court, the evidence presented before it, looking at previous decisions of the Supreme Court and how the election was conducted, and having in mind that the previous election was purely nullified on the basis of one statement that Maraga said, that the outcome of an election is as important as the process. So if they end up finding out that the process was not as good as the outcome, which in my view it wasn't, then we are going to go to a fresh election.
There is some pundits posit that a rerun would actually, politically speaking, work to the advantage of Ruto.
Well, that is what they say. But the truth of the matter is that if the elections are nullified, then what the court will be saying is that William Ruto did not rightfully win this election, and that the rightful winner is the other party. And so if we go to a fresh election, then the other party would, once they put their systems in check and order, they would win.
In my view, is that in a court of law, you arrive to a judgment based on facts and based on law. When we were having this issue to do with BBI case, we were told so many things. Deep state, we were told we have people in the Supreme Court, we have people placed there. But we saw, but everybody was in this country and we saw the judgment. I'm happy that this time round, instead of going through the back door, of violence, intimidation, and all character of swearing in people's president and people's president-elect, we have gone through the due process.
Okay.
And the due process is going to be followed. Starting tomorrow is pre-trial. And I'm 100% sure that the election is going to be upheld and William Ruto is going to be sworn in as the president.
If it's not, and there's a decision to have
if it's not
another election, but
if it's
under a different constituted IBC.
If it's not upheld and it's nullified, according to the constitution, within 60 days we must have another election. But remember, the petitioners have gone to court and they are saying that if the elections are nullified, we are not going to have an election with the same commission.
Yeah.
So it's a constitutional crisis. It's a conspiracy from the petitioners to create a constitutional crisis to extend the powers, to extend the term of one Uhuru Kenyatta, and to extend and to have another government, a mongrel in terms of government of national unity, which we are not ready. And the Kenyans made their decision on 9th of August. And 7.1 million Kenyans decided.
Ruth laughs that off. I guess her opinion on that and her view on that is clear. Maneno ni mengi, Masani. You will allow me to wrap this up now, but there's a lot to talk about, and we will engage.
We need a rematch. We should come back.
And there's a lot to engage in the days to come. As a pre-trial conference, of course, starts proper tomorrow, and we will be live with it from 11 o'clock. Even before that, we will be live from actually at 6 o'clock when the results will be coming from the 8 areas, or at least for the 8 political positions that were being voted for today in 8 areas. And so we will be live with that from 6 o'clock, and as soon as the pre-trial conference starts, we will be live with that, and that is the station, of course, to follow that from, with analysis to follow. And thank you, Joe. Thank you, Ruth, for your time. Thank you for watching, and thank you to the team who made this possible. Have yourself a good night.